Thanks, NBA. 14 games. We're going to try and cover it as quickly, but also as precisely and in-depth as possible. Michael Bolton's got my back. Michael.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and stay tuned later in the show for a guest appearance from Dickie Nee. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball, and on Blue Sky at joshlloyd.bsky.social. What else am I going to say? Oh yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also, again, double banging. I love it. Here we're free, all platforms. You know how it goes. Also, LockedOnDaily.com. There's so much for me to talk about. My brain is like racing. So much to talk about here. LockedOnDaily.com for newsletters. Thank you. Subscribe. Operation 90K. Canadians. We'll get to you. We'll get to you. Just got to get that 90K on the sub button. Let's talk about these games. By the way, tomorrow, mailbag show with Kingy tomorrow morning, my time tomorrow morning, 2:30 p.m. I think for you guys. I've also got a show locked and loaded about some odd stats, some deep stats that might be interesting for you guys, so we check that one out as well. Like I said, we've got 14 games here, so we are just going to have to bang through these, roll through these as quickly as we can, because I don't want this show to go for 3 hours, because honestly, I don't have the time for it to go through for 3 hours, because I do have to live and sleep and breathe. Maybe breathe. We'll see. That's negotiable. Let's go to the first one. We're going to talk Portland Trailblazers. We're going to talk Indiana Pacers in this game. The Blazers lose 121-114 on the road, but there were some lineup changes, as there were in basically every game. In this game, Deandre Ayton returned miraculously with the absence of Klingon and Rob Williams. We also had Denny Avdia moving into the starting lineup because Jeremy Grant was out. So that's where we're at. Let's look at the Blazers side of things. Ayton just played a casual 34 minutes, 16 and 12 with 3 blocks and took 2 free throws. Okay, cool. Sick. Awesome. Where was this crap in every other game? What we do with this guy, I honestly don't know. Well, obviously I know at the moment we roster him, but before he got hurt with his finger issue, he was playing like 24 minutes a night and really struggling. You've got to roster him clearly, and I still believe Rob Williams is going to play 22 to 23 minutes a night when he returns. But now, I don't know when that is, and Ayton's the guy here that's going to cook. Avdia, been very bad this season, but the last little bit of time, the last week or so, very good. 41 minutes for Denny, 16, 5 and 7, 2 steals and a block. Now again, it requires Klingon, Rob Williams, and Jeremy Grant being out to get to this, but they're out, so he's doing it. You can roster him for now. Where he fits long-term, I do not know. Toumani Camara, only 24 minutes. He did have 4 fouls, but he had 8 and 4 with 2 threes. I think, again, later on, when things are sort of moving into the right spots, that Camara won't be a 12-team league guy. He's really just, I believe, a streamable player, and you do not have to roster him. And it was finally good to get a good Anthony Simons game, because he stunk. Now, with all of this, with Ayton, with Avdia, with Simons, playing the Pacers is a pretty good remedy to get some good numbers up. So bear that in mind. 30 and 6 assists with 6 triples for Simons. And what about old mate Scoot? Sterling Henderson. 35 bench minutes in his return. 17, 2 and 9. And it would have been much better had he not gone 2 of 6 from the line. He shot the ball well. He got the assists. He hit threes. That's fantastic. Is there 35 minutes a night every time? Or is this another one because Jeremy Grant's in there doing whatever it is that Jeremy Grant does? Suck. He takes up so much oxygen. Shaedon Sharpe, unfortunately, not very good. And that is not me talking about this game. I do not like Shaedon Sharpe as a long-term future superstar upside player. I think he's okay for you to roster, but honestly, for fantasy, he doesn't really do enough. 17, 3 and 3, 37 minutes, and you probably need both Simons and Scoot to be out, and every minute and every usage pumped right into Sharpe. Because he's inefficient, he's not the hugest volume player, and outside of scoring, he doesn't do anything. And that's not a good recipe for fantasy value. We didn't get Dwop Reith as a backup center, it was Jabari Walker. So those of you in the old, you know what I'm going to say, in the old double Onyx, Platinum, Diamond, Titanium leagues, probably want to move off of Dwop Reith, although you probably want to stash him just in case. On to the Pacers. and their side of the equation. They rolled out the same lineup with the same injuries. And is Haliburton back, or is this just home court advantage? 39 minutes, 28, 8 and 10, 2 steals, 5 threes, 7 of 7 from the line, 50% from the field. If you bought low, if you held strong, you are enjoying this because this man has put up a couple of big ones in a row. And we actually got a huge Pascal Siakam game. 29 and 7, a Richie Beno, which is 2 steals, 2 blocks and 2 threes. Fantastic. Miles Turner, the minutes also way up. 38 minutes, 15 and 8 with 5 blocks. Would have liked him to shoot a little bit better, but these are all big numbers. And Ben Mathurin, 40 minutes. 24 with 10 rebounds. And I actually do think at this point that the huge rebounds for Ben Mathurin are real. They just seem to be real. Miles Turner's not a good rebounder. Siakam's not the best rebounder, so maybe they're just relying more here on Mathurin to be able to produce those rebounding numbers for them. Quentin Jackson started. He played a lot. 33 minutes for Jackson, 9, 5 and 4, 2 steals and a block, which is okay. And that's the deeper League One in there. While Timothy John, only 15 minutes for McConnell. I would have hoped for more. It's not a great line, 6, 4 and 3, but 2 steals and a block is helpful. And Jarvis Walker just being phased out. 10 minutes for him for 2 points, while the dildo Johnny Furphy went scoreless in his 9. Walker, at the moment, looks like a horrible, horrible bust of a pick. Hopefully he's able to get things back on track, but with Neesmith, Nembhard, and Shepherd all out, and this is what's happening, yikes. Yeah, it's not looking good at this point for Jarvis, and obviously you don't have him in 10 or 12, or probably even 14-team leagues at this point. The second game of the day. Your LA Clippers up against the Washington Wizards. The Clippers cook them 121-96. You play the Wizards, you put up good numbers, and Jim Harden did exactly that. 32 minutes for Jimmy, 43, 4 and 7 with 3 steals on 59%. And there's a show that is coming out tomorrow, and I talked about how Harden's field goals are down because he couldn't finish at the rim. Well, you play against the Wizards, it does help a little bit, doesn't it? 10 of 11 from the line as well for Jim. That is a masterful, masterful performance. And Zubats did pretty well as well. 18 and 16 with a block for Ivica. Terrence Mann had 4 steals, but not a lot else really going on across this line. Cousin Kevin Porter did nothing. Jordan Miller, my man, this guy is continuing to score at a really, really high rate. Norman Powell was still out, shockingly, with that hamstring. They try and bring him back early. He didn't play. Cool. With Powell out, Jordan Miller is a very interesting, and without literally no sarcasm at all, he is a very good deep league ad. And I hope you added him like a week ago when we mentioned that the first time. We also got 8 minutes of the big stiffy Bones Highland. Do you remember that guy was in the league? He had 10 points in that time, and no, we don't add him at all anywhere. And Chris Dunn got things for steals. So look, the overall breakdown here is you don't care about man. You don't worry about Derek Jones as an ad. You don't worry about... Derek Jones had foul trouble, by the way. Chris Dunn's a stream guy. Amir Coffey, Kevin Porter. These are not 12-team league players. On the Wizards side of things, this team just keeps losing. They just keep losing. They did make a change in the lineup because Jordan Poole returned. So Poole went back into the starting lineup and Keishel and George moved to the bench, but then Kyle Kuzma suffered what they called a rib strain, and I would imagine that Kuzma, who's had an absolute disaster of a season, I think Kuzma will miss some time here, so I don't mind adding George. Let's just start with what George was able to do, and he had 2 points on 17%, but if he's a 30-minute-a-night player, I'm good with him being on a roster. It's not going to be a long-term thing, but I am good with that. The absolute faller from Bilal Coulibaly is outrageous. 3 points in 31 minutes, 17%. He is better than this, but maybe not that much. He was obviously incredibly out over his skis to begin the season, and he is just back to like a nothing player now. It's not great. Speaking of a nothing player, Jordan Poole had 8 points in 25 minutes. He has clearly been ridiculously good this season. But this is a real cool-off at the moment for Poole, and you just hope it's not a full reversion back. While Brogdon had 17 in 22 minutes, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block. It was elite shooting. It was a great game from Brogdon. He is a 12-team league guy for now, but that is not a long-term solution. And what we wanted to check whether was Alex Sarr was able to continue to play well, and he didn't play that well, but 13 and 5 with 2 threes, a steal, and a block is good numbers, and he must be on a roster. Bub Carrington, yeah, look, I like Bub a lot, as you know, but 3 points in his 19 minutes. There's just not enough for him to do. It was also a really good game from Valanciunas. 17 points in 18 minutes, but that's not realistic. All right, if he's a 17-minute player and he'd probably be less than that on a lot of nights, I don't think that is necessarily a must-roster guy. It could be, but I don't necessarily think that it is. We've got so many more games to come back and talk about. 12 more. Some might say too many. Me, I would say that. But let's tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Yes, The NFL season is here, and I know that you are ready to tackle all of the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, Thanksgiving is coming up. You might be looking and trying to find a way to get out of talking to someone at Thanksgiving. You say, hey, I got something to do. I got the game to watch, so I want to go and place a live bet. You open it up, and you got to place that first $5 bet. You can win your first $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets. And when you got that live bet up, you're ready to go. Instead of having to go to different spots to find all the live stats and the live play-by-play, it is all there, all in the one spot on the FanDuel app. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, in the middle of Thanksgiving lunch, do you do lunch or dinner? It's lunch, isn't it, for Thanksgiving? In the middle of that Thanksgiving lunch, you want to go place that bet. It's all there in the one spot. So go to FanDuel.com to get started and get you $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay. Let's go back into the next game here. We're talking about the third game of the day. It is my Chicago Bulls up against your Orlando Magic. The Magic win it comfortably 133-119. And what we did get was Lonzo Ball returning and putting up an absolutely outrageous line. The Bulls starting lineup remained the same, and Lonzo played 15 minutes and he had 6 points. And you go, well, that's not outrageous, Josh. Well, the rest of it is, though. 2 threes, 3 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. But let me again rephrase it. I love Lonzo. If he's a 26-minute-a-night player, 25, we'd be adding him everywhere. But he's not. I don't think he's going to get there. And a 15-minute-a-night bench player is not a viable 12-team league guy. It isn't. He will play 18 minutes at some point, 19 minutes. But this is not viable. It's great, but it's not viable. So don't overreact to this. Josh Giddey had 13 points. He had 5 assists. He had 2 blocks. He shot the ball well. But this is another one of those games where the minutes down for him. And Kobe White also was actually bad. He wasn't good at all. 9 points, no defensive stats, shot poorly. It's been a bit of a roller coaster for Kobe this season. What about Vooch? How did we go there? 19 and 11 with 4 assists and 2 threes, 40% shooting. He was 1 of 2 from the line. Josh, you just wait till he has a bad game and then you tell us that he told you he's going to drop off. Nah, I've just told you that every game. And that was a bad game. But you know what? It is a bad game, but it's also like not that far from my overall expectations. The overall story on Vooch will be written at the end of the year, but that's not a very good one. That's okay. It's also not a good game from Zach LaVine. 8 points with 10 assists. Cool. Where the good stuff came from, unbelievably, I'm going to have to do it again 2 shows in a row. I'm going to tell you that Taylor Horton-Tucker put up a good game. 20 points, 14 minutes, 3 threes. I swear to you, if Billy Donovan means that he plays this guy a large rotation role, well, I guess it's good for improving your draft pick. But man, this guy, it is a good run here from Horton-Tucker. Absolutely no debating that. But holy crap. Like, Dalen Terry was out of this game. He played like a minute, and that gave Horton-Tucker more. But 88% shooting. This is where people get fooled into Horton-Tucker. He rolled with a 33% usage. Probably don't want that as an every night thing. I wouldn't read into it like at all. It was also a really solid game, or a much better game from Ayo Dosunmu. But again, him, Giddey, and Horton-Tucker all had to shoot over 80% to get these numbers up. And they still got cooked by 14 points. I don't think things are going pretty well for the Bulls. In fact, I know that they're not going very well. And part of the reason I know things aren't going well for the Bulls is they allowed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to play well. And that is just an absolute cardinal sin. Caldwell-Pope has been dreadful this season, but he played 34 minutes and had 24 points. He hit 6 threes, he had 4 steals, he shot 62%. He was always going to bounce back at some point to be usable, maybe, actually to be just capable as a player. This does not mean that you run to add him, in my opinion. They made a couple of changes to their lineup. Gary Harris was out with a hamstring, but Jalen Suggs returned from his hamstring. Well, Wendell Carter did return, and he started next to Goga Bitadze. That meant that Tristan Da Silva moved to the bench. Let's check what Carter did. 4 points in 18 minutes with a steal and a block. I do not believe that you need to rush to add Wendell Carter Jr. I think he might have some 12-team moments. If you've got him in your IL, I would hold him there for a little bit, but I don't think it's a rush. But the interesting thing is the play of him and Goga. 25 minutes for Bitadze, 11 and 11, 2 steals and a block. I am not certain that this will be what they do every game. I don't think you could have that level of certainty or confidence that this will be the move that these guys make moving forward. Like, I don't know that that'll be something you can do. But it was there, and we hold Goga through it. Jalen Suggs, well, I can't wait for the show that I recorded already to come out tomorrow talking about Suggs and how there are a million indicators for him to get better. 32 minutes for him, 31 points, 4 threes, 7 assists on 56% shooting and 7 of 7 from the line is an elite game. While Franz Wagner, the shots finally didn't fall. 20 shots, 35%, 21 3 and 6 with 2 steals and a block. Yes, Suggs is a must-roster player. But with Suggs playing like that, what about Mr. Black? Well, yeah. 4 3 and 3 in 15 minutes for Anthony Black. What are we doing? Get that garbage out of here. Yep, there's just not enough consistency. There's not enough. He doesn't shoot well enough, and you get stinkers like this all too often mixed in. John Isaac, 22 minutes again. 4 points, and you go, that's bad, isn't it? And you go, your 4 points is bad, but 6 rebounds, 1 steal, 3 blocks, 22 minutes, absolutely fine to be rostering him, I think, at this point. So I think that, Suggs and Franz and Isaac are guys to roster. I think that Wendell is borderline. I think Goga's okay at the moment. And KCP's like a 14-team league guy. But again, you're playing the Bulls, and that does help. Getting to play Chicago is just a real boost in what teams are able to do. And we've seen that Indiana against Indiana, against Washington, against Brooklyn. These are all teams that enable you usually to put up good numbers. The next game we're going to look at here, we're going to the Miami Heat and the Charlotte Hornets. The Heat get the win 98-94, but was it a good one? I mean, Jimmy Butler. This is where people sometimes get a lot of things about what I say they misconstrue them or they misinterpret them. And I try to explain it, and I get it because sometimes I can be like harsh or confident in what I say. Right, when I talk about the impact of contract years, and I say they're garbage. They're not a thing that you can have any reliability on whatsoever. And then Jimmy Butler will have a big game and someone will invariably chirp at me, which they did 2 days ago. Hey, see, contract year Jimmy. Yet those guys are always incredibly silent when Jimmy Butler has 25 minutes and has 6 points and doesn't attempt a single 2-pointer. And that is the entire point of all of those narratives. Contract year narratives, revenge games. You can always pick the good ones. You can always say, well, look at this. This is what happened, contract year. But you ignore the 48% of them that are bad. And that's where all of that argument that I have in that. It's not to say that nobody ever is better in a contract year, because they are. But it's not because of the contract year. There's nothing to prove that sort of stuff. And the thing that you look at is Jimmy has been declining in production. He's had a lot of injury issues versus a nebulous. He's going to work so much harder for a contract, which is just not a thing that years and years of data has proven to be false. So anyway, Jimmy was shit. He had 6 points in his 25 minutes. And speaking of shit, Terry Rozier. And I told you yesterday that I wasn't super encouraged by Rozier's game, even though he played well. This is why. 7 points, 25 minutes, 29%. I'm not fully there to call it on Rozier, but I'm just going to throw a bit of a jack out there. Get that garbage out of here. Just in case you were thinking it. Good bounce back from Hero. He had 27, 8, and 5. Adebayo had 8 points only. So how you win as Miami with 8 points from Bam and 6 from Miami is actually unbelievable. But he had 10 rebounds and 10 assists out of Adebayo. And we actually got a little bit better of a Jaime Jaquez game, but that's not enough for me to be holding him. 20 minutes, 11 points. Duncan Robinson. He is in the mix of the Gary Trent's let's flip a coin and maybe we get some threes out of you starter. 22 points with 6 threes, but just again, a game log search will show you that you can't rely upon it. And then old mate Haywood Highsmith pops up with 4 blocks out of nowhere in 30 minutes. And his minutes continue to be all over the shop. Pele Larson, 6 points in his 15 minutes, so he was not the flavour of the day today. He dropped well off while Little Chungus back out of the rotation. We're going to go to the Charlotte side of things now and just some... same lineup they trotted out there, but LaMelo Ball, man. What is going on with this guy? Sometimes you just see lines, you go, these are terrible. Then he ends up with 32, 10, and 7 with 7 triples. And yeah, they are absolutely, they're Russell Westbrook percentages. 31% on 35 attempts is outrageous. And then 3 of 5 from the line to go with that. He also, for those of you who want something to fluff out, 7 turnovers too. But just to generate those counting stats on a day where nothing else goes right, unbelievable. Tijan Salan, finally. We get a good game now, because that's every one of his other games, atrocious. This does not even make him a top 300 player. He played 38 minutes as a starting power forward. Salan had 17 and 4 with 3 threes and 3 steals and shot the ball really well. And there will be calls to go and add him, and I understand that, because you see a game, you see a rookie, you see a team that you assume is terrible, and you go, well, let's just lean into that. But also remember, Miles Bridges could be back next game, probably is back next game, and then Richards and Williams will filter back in, allegedly, over the coming next 1-2 games. And Salan goes back, and he's a reserve, and it doesn't matter at all. So, that is great, but cool. Reggie Evans Musa Diabate had 0 points and 11 rebounds. He had a steal. I would be holding him a little bit. I would hold him over Salam, but the long-term value of that just isn't there, while Josh Green does nothing. And Brandon Miller, I'd say, was pretty good. 21, 2, and 3 with a steal and a block for Miller. And Cody Martin continues to just do the things that make him streamable. Only 4 points, but 6 boards, 4 steals, 2 blocks, which is good, but it doesn't push high enough. It doesn't really get into that sort of upper echelon level that you want it to be to consider him like this absolute guarantee must-roster guy with players out. And again, there are players all starting to come back. The next game, we're going to go to an overtime game between the Houston Rockets and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Rockets did not change their starting lineup, but that didn't mean that the production from the starting lineup didn't change, because the big fella himself, and I mispronounced this yesterday. I called it Mullo. That's incorrect. It's Hullo, I believe. Maybe I got that wrong again. Jalen Green, Jollibee Jalen. He said, cool, I've been dreadful. Let's go off. 41 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, 4 threes. Got to the line 14 times and hit 13 of them and shot 60% from the field. Just an unbelievable game. And in the past, when Green gets on a heater, it's a week, it's 2 weeks. He has been terrible. This game corrects that immediately to make him look much better. Does it continue? It's really, really hard to know because he's been getting outplayed by so many players. But in this one, we had Amen Thompson cook at the same time. 19 and 13, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Amen Thompson is... I've said multiple top 50 seasons. I am wrong on that. I think he's going to have multiple top 20 seasons. Think of Sean Marion for fantasy, if you remember Sean Marion playing fantasy, but like 100 times better athlete. These minutes are outrageous, and I love it. Fred VanVleet played 42. He had 13 points. He had 5 assists. He had 2 steals and 2 blocks and shot horribly, but that is just a Fred VanVleet game. And there were people, again, calling to drop Tari Eason. You shouldn't have. I hope you didn't. 14, 7, and 2 blocks. Jabari Smith had started to look better, and he was the victim here. He played 25 minutes and had 8 points, while Dylan Brooks missed all 11 of his shots. I don't think it could be worse for a guy that I think is useful as a streamer and is shown to be useful as a streamer. That is as bad as it gets. I guess the question is, how does a men play that much when Jalen plays that much? Well, really, it's just Jabari Smith not playing, and then the rest of the rotation just not being used. 5 minutes for Reed Shepherd, actually 6 for Aaron Holiday. That's it. Nobody playing any of those minutes. So they're just going with an incredibly tight 8-man rotation. So Amen is a must roster. Tari is. Jalen Green, maybe, probably. That's a really good game, and it is hard to leave that on the wire. Brooks is a streamer, and I think that's where we're at with that team. For the Sixers, they are still without Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Caleb Martin. I don't think Embiid returns for the next one. George, maybe. Caleb Martin was out, so they started Andre Drummond and Gershon Yabusele together, and Yabu was great. 22 and 7 in 43 minutes with 4 threes, steal, and a block. And I do prefer him over Drummond, even though Drummond did have 6 and 9 in this one. I don't think that it's a must in 12-team leagues, but it is good. While Tyrese Maxey was brute forced his way to huge minutes and huge production. 45 minutes is an outrageous number. I know it's an overtime game, but come on. 41, 2 and 10, 5 steals. That's another good one that I talked about on the show that's not out yet. We talked about Maxey and his assist numbers, how they're primed to improve. 10 assists here is great with 6 threes and 5 steals. And that's just obviously an outrageous amount of usage, 39%. And it is going to change when other players come back. And what you were also seeing here is that the Jared McCain thing was not real. It's not to say that we dropped Jared McCain, but that level of shooting and the fact that the rest of the line is a little bit empty should always give you that level of pause. 15 and 6 is not bad. The minutes I think are going to stay for McCain. But 1 assist, 1 steal, 32% shooting. These sort of things were always going to happen at some point. Oubre also was Kelly Oubre. He had 11 points in 45 minutes with a steal and a block. I don't think he's a must-roster player, like at all. You can use him, you can stream him, but not someone that I would consider a must-roster guy. Hey, I didn't talk about the mayor. Also, Ricky Council, 12 and 10, steal, block. I think he might be a better player than Caleb Martin. Maybe that's going too far, but that is a real double Onyx Diamond Platinum move to have a look at Ricky Council. Although, again, Caleb and Paul George could both be back next game, and that would limit any of your unbelievable pools that you're able to get someone like that on. The next game we talk about is the Atlanta Hawks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Hawks on the road, 135, beat the Cavs 124. Trae Young played through his Achilles issue and scored 20 points and had more assists than that. 20 and 22. You don't see many of those games. He saw Alfred Payton go out there and went, right, I'm beating that number. That is a ridiculous game from Trey, even though he shot poorly, and Jalen Johnson continues to absolutely cook. 22, 9, and 7 with a steal and a block. What else happened? Well, immediately your eyes are drawn to the fact that DeAndre Hunter scored 26. So you go, okay, what else did he do? Was it a DeAndre Hunter? And of course it was. 4 rebounds, 1 assist, no steals, no blocks, and took 56% shooting to get there. And that falls into one of those ones. If you had it, good for you, but it's not a replicable thing. He would do it occasionally. He does absolute nonsense on other days, and I don't care for him to be a must-roster guy. Zach Ricochet, 17 minutes. Okay. He had 17 points, and he shot 60%. He had a steal and a block. That's unbelievable. But it's 17 minutes, and it continues to be 17 minutes, and I do not think he is a 12-team league player. While I do not know what to make of the centers, because Okongwu played 29 minutes and Clint Capella played 19, and Larry Nance just back out of the rotation again, I think you hold Capella. I don't think you have to hold Okongwu, but you could also drop Capella as well. It just feels like it's going to be back and forward with these blokes all the way through. Bogdanovic played 26. He was fine, 17 and 3. That's not super exciting, but I would roster him over Hunter, and I would roster him over Ricochet for my own personal enjoyment and edification. The other side of the equation, that's the right word, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They lose. They run the same lineup out there. No Strus, no LeVert, no Wade. Evan Mobley, 22, 13, and 5. 5 steals and 3 blocks is an unbelievably good line. He has been so good this season. And Donovan Mitchell was pretty strong as well. 30 and 4 with 6 assists. And Darius Garland has definitely cooled off. But yeah, you get 19, 2, and 7. You're not going to complain massively about it. All their big guys put up big numbers. Everyone else, not so much. What we wanted to check on was how did Milk go? Could he be the best shooter in the NBA? Of course he could not, because he is not. 8 points on 38% with 2 threes. He did have 6 assists and 2 steals, but adding Ty Jerome was the definition of chasing, something that was never going to be able to hold. I get why you did it, and with everyone out, there was a little bit of room there, and the minutes are okay, but I think that's a nice little just proof of concept that it's not real, and he's not going to be able to continue to do that. Okoro had 8 points in his 23 minutes, and honestly, just not much more going on with our team, but some big performances, they just couldn't get it done over the Hawks. We're going to come back to cover the rest of these games off. There's just so many of them. But first of all, I'm also going to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Skylight Frames. Yes, gift-giving season is here, and sometimes you might have that relative that you need to buy for a friend, a partner, or whatever, and you just don't really know exactly what to get. Well, how about something like a Skylight Frame? It is a digital touchscreen photo frame, and you don't even need to be nothing convoluted whatsoever about doing it. You can just set it up under 60 seconds, and then you can just send out the app to your friends and family or through an email and say, hey, if you want to contribute photos to this frame, here's how you do it. You drop them into the app, you send it through the email, and it will appear up on your wall in your frame, whether it's on the wall hanging or on a little stand somewhere else. They've got 2 sizes, a 10-inch and a 15-inch. There's a touchscreen where you can swipe through the photos. You can hit the like button as well for instant feedback to the people who sent those photos through as well. It is just a fantastic way of being able to display all of your best photos and memories in your house. So now, as a special offer, a limited time offer, all of you guys out there, you get $20 off your first purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That is SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/LockedOnNBA. No, sorry, /NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NBA. Okay. All right. Let's go into the next one. The New York Knicks and the Dallas Mavericks. The Knicks, of course, running their same lineup as they always do. And it does feel like Jalen Brunson is back here. 37 points in 36 minutes. He had 7 assists and 2 steals. He shot unbelievably, but his volume is through the roof. So was Towns, to be honest. Although he didn't shoot well, 44%. He had 25 and 14. And I guess some of those early season concerns from Brunson have been eased off somewhat now, and he's looking pretty good. Josh Hart, yeah, that's good. That's fine. I think that's more in line with expectations for Hart, not some of the earlier stuff that he was doing in terms of the elite shooting. The 4 steals are really good, and of course, insane minutes, 42 minutes, while Bridges had a solid game, 20 points with not much else. The 20 points is good, but we all knew there was going to be a drop-off coming for the Jedi, OG Anunoby, and it hit hard. 8 points on 20% shooting, no steals, no blocks, no threes. That is the buy low drop. No, the sell high slump. That's what it is, isn't it? The sell high slump. We knew it was coming. Nothing made sense about him sticking at that level, and that's what we got to. We also barely got any Juice McBride here. Just 15 minutes for Juice and 20 minutes of campaign. If Juice plays 25 a night, I like him as a fringe guy with stash upside, but that sort of role is something we just need to pay attention to see what the master Tom Thibodeau decides that he is going to do in that spot. On the Dallas side of things, they win it. I didn't mention it. 129-114, the final score. Grimy, he returned. He started over Jaden Hardy. I don't think many people are super surprised about that. Hardy was very good in the last game, but that is just one of those things that happens. If you look at the Dallas side, there was still no who was out? No Klay Thompson, no Luka Doncic, and then we had Daniel Gafford out in this one. So Derek Lively got to play 29 minutes, 12 and 9, 2 steals and a block. I wish that we got him like this every game. We don't, but that's okay. For now, we enjoy this. And then Paul Washington, man, this run from PJ is crazy. 19, 10, and 7, 1 steal and 2 blocks. He's adding assists now and defensive stats. There is going to be a huge drop-off, but this was really good. And that is also 2 big games in a row for Spencer Dinwiddie, who looked absolutely atrocious about 3 games ago. 21, 3, and 9 on 73%. It does help, obviously, that Klay and Luka are both out. I guess if you streamed him in, you'd get a little bit of value, but I don't think that it's a huge necessity. And another big scoring night from Quentin Grimes. Grimes, 21 and 7 with 4 threes, and Marshall had 24 points. It's very hard for me to feel confident about Dinwiddie, Marshall, and Grimes scoring 20 again, but they did it like a game or 2 ago. So it has been a very weird sort of run of things for Dallas. You can stream the Marshalls and Grimeses, less so Dinwiddie's, but that's deeper league stuff. But all of this stuff, and I haven't mentioned this in the show, but I'll mention it now, is that every year, this day before Thanksgiving, stuff goes wild. There's just weird things all over the place. Sometimes teams and players, their minds are on family and gatherings and a day off and all that sort of stuff. There's always a bunch of weird stuff, which usually doesn't really have any forward projecting importance. But that happened. You can stream. I would stream Marshall in over Grimes and over Dinwiddie, but my level of confidence in any of that is really low because it's the sort of players that those guys are. If we go on to the next game now, which we will, it is Sacramento taking on Minnesota, and Jay Crowder signed a contract today. He signed a contract, and then he was able to jump straight into the starting lineup. Now, that shows the lack of depth in that Kings forward group. Crowder, we don't necessarily need to add him at all, really. He played 27 minutes. He had 8 points with 2 threes. Trey Lyles is out, and that's going to be part of what Crowder does. But DeRozan was also out here, so that helped him. We got a very typical Keon Ellis game. 8 points with 2 threes, a steal, and 2 blocks. And that's what you use him for. You get some defensive stats in. You stream him. I wouldn't say he's a must-roster guy, but the guy that absolutely cooked here was Malik Monk. 35 minutes for the big fella. 27, 8, and 9 with 3 threes. He has been very up and down, and that is the way that Mike Brown coaches. But while this happens, grab him now, because theoretically, and I've said this all season, he is that guy that should be playing 30-plus minutes. His refusal to start him is insane, but that's okay. 35 minutes for him, 14 minutes for Kevin Huerter shows a clear sort of direction. Now, of course, DeRozan being out helps Monk here, but you grab him and then you figure it out later on. De'Aaron Fox had 23, 8, and 8, and Sabonis had 27, 12, and 5. So just good games from both of those players. But Keegan Murray not able to get it done, is he? 8 points, 39 minutes, 4 rebounds. The last couple of games have been pretty good from Keegan, but these are the issues, the inconsistencies that do seem to plague him. On the Minnesota side of this game, Mike Conley did return. He was into the starting lineup, and that meant that Dante DiVincenzo moved to the bench. He had 5 points in 25 minutes. Dante, I feel pretty good about moving on from him.
Get that garbage out of here.
As for Conley, only 32 minutes, which is the most he's played all season. 16, 1 and 4, 2 steals. I believe that if he was dropped, you go and grab him. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker also popped off. Of course, he shot 83% to get there. But 20 minutes, 17 points, and 5 threes. And this is, again, that indication where people thought this is the announcement. This is it. Rob Dillingham's in. He's ready to go. 6 minutes. All right? There is not enough playing time here for Rob Dillingham to play. 6 minutes, 0 points. If you added him, you move on. That's okay. It was always going to be a squeeze, and we got squeezed pretty hard. And Edwards shot poorly, but he did have 3 steals and 29 points, while Randall had 21, 9, and 4. And Jaden McDaniels, atrocious. Now, the problem with this one is he's foul trouble again, 0 points. And last game I was talking about, hey, if he hit a couple more shots, it would have been good. The volume was there. The volume was not here. He missed all 3 of his shots. Yes, 3. He took 3 shots. He missed them all. No defensive stats. We've seen it before. If you want to move on, I get it.
Get that garbage out of here.
Also a struggle night from Naz Reid, who did have 3 steals and 3 blocks, so that helps, but couldn't shoot and had 7 points in 24 minutes, and he just remains that fringy player, not a game changer really at all. Let us move on to the next one. It is Detroit taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies win at 131-111. No Cade in this one. And then the thick hogsman, Tobias Harris, was out with a hip issue as well. I don't think it's anything serious for Tobias, but we'll wait and see. And that meant that Asar Thompson got to start and had 3 points in 20 minutes. He did have 4 assists. He shot 20% only. I continue to believe it's going to be hard for Asar to do enough this season, unfortunately. Now, this is a very weird game. You can look at the minutes and the distribution. This game was over really early. We had 27 minutes of Marcus Sasser scoring 22 points. I would not react to it. Fontecchio had 18 points with three threes, and Beasley had 10 points in 20 minutes. But the minutes are all over the shop. Jalen Duren, just 21 minutes. Jaden Ivey. You know what? I'm just going to double check this to make sure that my box score is not incorrect. Because remember that happened to me yesterday? No, I am right. That's weird. Why is that showing up? No, 18 minutes for Ivy with 17 points. So he scored really well. But again, this is just a weird game, a weird rotation from JB. And I think most of what happened here you can throw out. Terrible night from Isaiah Stewart as well. 0 of 6 from the field. We've got 26 Ron Holland minutes, 22 Tim Hardaway. Honestly, I think throw nearly all of this out. Apart from the fact that it still is going to remain hard for Asar Thompson, I believe, to play enough, and Jalen Duren is not really doing anything at all. On the other side of the coin, onto the Memphis side of this game, they had no Ja Morant, so Scott Pippen moved back into the starting lineup, and he was great because Ja was out. That's fantastic. 19, 7, and 4 with 3 steals. But in contrast to the Detroit box score, just have a look at the way that this one shakes out. It's so many big scoring nights. Jaren and Desmond Bane played 22 minutes each because they just didn't need to play anymore. So I know they're going to be panics on Desmond Bane. Absolutely. 2 points in 22 minutes is horrible. He shot 1 of 6. Horrible. It's the biggest buy low ever. Or one of them anyway. Jaren Jackson also shot poorly. 12 and 6 with 2 steals and a block. I wouldn't, again, read anything into this. Another solid game from Jake LaRavia. He's at least providing some stream value as a 12. And Marcus Smart, absolutely unbelievable. 25 points in 20 minutes with 7 threes and 5 assists and 3 steals. But again, this is such a weird game where big performances from a bunch of players are able to cook. The game was out of hand. And I don't think you need to read, oh man, I've got to go grab Smart. I've got to go and do this with Wells, or I'm going to panic on Bane or whatever. Jalen Wells, by the way, 13 points with 3 threes. Just keeps chipping away at those threes. This was just another one of those very weird games where if Morant is out, Pippen's got value. If Morant comes back, he doesn't. And I think that's where we sit. And you can see, I'll keep saying it, but the way that so many of these games are actual smashings, this is just such a bad day for basketball with the Thanksgiving break coming up and a lot of teams just losing that little bit of focus. The next game is the Toronto Raptors putting the smackdown onto the Pelicans, 119-93 is your final score here. Let's start with the change in the starting lineup because Jacoby Walter, Gary Trent III, he started over Davion Mitchell and good numbers. 28 minutes, 14, 11, and 5, 2 steals. No Olynyk, no Dick, no Quickly, no Brown in this one. That's a really good game from Walter. He was a plus 31. He had 26 usage. I don't think that is a grab situation. You can, absolutely, because there's obviously an opening here with Dick out. But, I don't know how long Toronto is going to have their Dick out. He could be returning next game, and then Walter goes back to the bench. We get full, proud Dick in there all the minutes, and we don't get anything from Walter. So this is good, but I don't know. I don't think it's anything long-term. Abaji also was able to go off. Another one of these games where what is going on? 24 points and 6 threes for Abaji, 24 points and 6 threes for Jamison Battle. Okay, 90% shooting for Abaji, 82 for Battle. That's great, but honestly, it doesn't mean anything as you move forward. These are all nothing performances. I mean, that's not true. They're not nothing. They're great. But there was a blowout on a weird day with weird rotations. Rowan Barrett was able to hit some shots apart from free throws. 22, 8, and 11, and Scott Barnes the opposite. 30% from the field and 1 of 2 from the line. He has been quite poor on his shooting numbers this season. Barnesy and Pirtle had a bit of a struggle game as well. Davion Mitchell went from playing 30 minutes a night to playing 15, and he had just the 4 assists, so I guess for the time being, his value of a streamer is disappearing, and disappearing very quickly. On to the New Orleans Pelicans side of things. They had to make quite a number of changes to their starting lineup. DeJounte Murray returned. That meant Alfred Payton moved to the bench. Yves Missi moved in and replaced Daniel Tice. And we also got a third move because Trey Murphy was out with a knee contusion, and that meant that in Trey Murphy's place, Who was it they actually put in? Oh, BJ Boston moved back in. So BJ just had 4 points with 2 steals. I'm not grabbing him there. And it was also a really good game from Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. But again, this game is so weird. No Ingram, no Trey. Herb's probably coming back in the next one. I don't think we need to read into it. CJ McCollum struggled with the shooting. Horrible. 19 points on 30 minutes. DeJounte Murray, 14 points on 17 shots. Just horrific games from both of those guys. And we know they're going to be better. Messi played 28 minutes. He was all right. 11 and 5, a steal, 2 blocks. That's pretty good. It's not world-beating. He's okay for now, but things will start to get squishy with his team later on. While Elfrid Payton couldn't replicate the 21 assists, he still played 27 minutes with a lot of players out. 10, 5, and 4 and 2 steals. I think that we're talking only deeper league things for Payton. Nothing that's anything that's really matters for most of you. Jordan Hawkins still rostered in 12-team leagues, and that probably does not need to be the case. Let us move on to the next one. It was the LA Lakers going to take on the San Antonio Spurs, and they win at 119-101, and JJ Redick did make a change. He did start Dalton Connect over Cam Reddish, and Connect was able to get really hot. 20 points, 53% shooting, 8 rebounds, 4 threes, and 2 steals. And they did the thing, is that when Connect hits the shots, he gets fed a lot more. He took more shots in this one than Anthony Davis. And last game, and the games before, he was struggling. If this is what they're going to do, then yeah, Connect is useful, and the 2 steals are really nice. But I still think he's going to be one of those up and down sort of a player. They've got a really good schedule coming up. I'm not going to fully buy on him being this absolute elite fantasy player, but that's good. And if he starts, it's way better than coming off the bench. It was also a better game from Rui Hachimura, who had 16 and 5 in 26 minutes, but that doesn't move me at all, while the buy low on Austin Reeves is still there. And Reeves does struggle when they feed Connect like this. 13, 2 and 2 for Reeves is not an ideal game at all. It was also a better game from D'Angelo Russell, who had 17, 1 and 5. And that's 2 good ones in a row from D'Lo. So if you wanted to grab him and see where we go with this, I get it. Triple-double for LeBron and 19, 14 and 7 for AD. But honestly, again, another almost 20-point margin skews a lot of the stuff in terms of trying to figure out where the value could lie. Onto the Spurs side of things, Devin Vassell did return. He had 14 points in 21 minutes. I believe you should be rostering him, but it is going to take time to get there. While Bubbles had 18 and 5 in 31 minutes, Julian Champagny, and Wemby had 20 and 10, 2 steals, 3 blocks, and 2 threes. Fantastic game for him also. Champagny should be on a roster for now. Last game, Steph Castle, fantastic. This game, 10 points, 33%. The 7 assists are good. He is a 12-team guy for now. Long-term, I'm not sure it's going to be there. There are going to be good flashes, and there are going to be games that are bad, and this is one of the bad ones. You also should not be rostering Keldon Johnson.
Get that garbage out of here.
4 points in his 22 minutes, and the pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. Decent game from Barnes. 19 points, 33 minutes, 5 threes, but I'm not going to overreact to that. That is streaming style stuff only. All right, let's keep flying through these games. Another blowout, Denver and Utah. 122-103 is your final score here in favor of Denver, which is, I don't think, of any major surprise to people. The Nuggets, they did roll out the same starting lineup that they have been in nearly all of these games, obviously. Let's talk about some of the production from those guys. Jokic was great, 30 and 10 with 7 assists, just another ho-hum game from him. But it was also great to get a big headmaster game. 22, 4 and 8 with 4 steals for Murray, and 41 minutes for Christian Brown. 18 and 7 with 2 threes on absolutely elite 75%. Now, the usage for him is way down, but he continues to be fantastic and exceeding all of my expectations. Michael Ponder was just fine, and Peyton Watson was a little bit annoying. 28 minutes for Watson with 9 points. He did have a steal and a block. They went in, they gave a little bit more to Westbrook, some minutes to Hunter Tyson. I am still holding Peyton Watson, but I also understand, especially in points leagues, if you want to move on. That would make sense in a lot of spots. I just like what Watson can do. That is not an encouraging game, though. On the Jazz side of things, it was... it was a weird situation for them with the amount of players that they had out. So there was no Larry Markkinen actually they called it personal. What on earth? He hurt his knee yesterday, could barely walk, and now it's personal? Like, okay. And then John Collins was out. So they started the combination of Micah Potter and Svi Mikhailuk. Potter grabbed 16 rebounds as a starting power forward. He played 32 minutes with 9 points, 3 threes, and a block. And honestly, I just don't think you can care about it. I don't think you can. Yes, Collins was out here and he might be back in the next game with a knee contusion. Jordan Clarkson was out in this one. Filipowski was out, but literally all three of those guys could return in the next game, and Potter will play 0 minutes. Colin Sexton, yep, okay. It makes sense that he's able to cook like this, 39 minutes, 26, 1 and 4. That's pretty empty, but it needs no Markkanen, no Collins, no Clarkson, all out. So I have been completely wrong on nearly all of these Jazz players. The rotations have been all over the shop, and guys seem to be deprioritized like Sexton, and then they come back into the fold. It's all over the shop. But again, look at this game. Oscar Tshiebwe played 16 minutes. Yeah, I'm finding it really tough to figure out what they're doing. 25 minutes for Bryce Sensabaugh, 13 points, 25 minutes, as I said, 2 steals. Like, he's a deeper league points guy. And then Keontae George, horrible shooting, 39%, but you know that with George, but 23 points, 5 threes, 4 assists, and a steal. That's enough there. There's enough value in that. Mykhailiuk did nothing in his 21 minutes with 7 points. And old mate John Juzang went scoreless. I thought he would have played a little bit more with all of those players out. He did not. He had 0 points and 5 rebounds. Also, just a quick mention to Walker Kessler, who had 16 and 12, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 3 blocks. But this Jazz team, as bad as they can be, Markkanen, Collins, Clarkson, Filipowski can all come back, and theoretically all of them could play starters minutes in the next game. So I wouldn't be overreacting to a lot of what we've seen in this one. Now we'll go on and do the next game. It is Brooklyn and Phoenix. And Brooklyn again. We got the news of Cam Thomas being out for multiple weeks, 3+ weeks with a hamstring injury. Nick Claxton's out, not on a back-to-back with his back issue, so that feels like it's going to plague him for all season. Noah Clown is out for multiple weeks, still no Day'Ron Sharpe. And then a guy that I thought would be able to step up would be Jalen Wilson. And, he didn't, because he was hurt as well. What we did get instead was someone by the name of Tyrese Martin. We'll talk about the lineup change. Finney Smith came in for Cam Thomas, and Ben Simmons started with Jalen Wilson out. But Tyrese Martin had 30 points in 28 minutes with 8 threes. That's great. But look, what do you do with this? Yes, Thomas and Clowney aren't returning next game. Wilson might. Claxton might. But even if Martin does play 28 minutes, and I don't think he will, he's not doing this. He's not shooting 77%. He's not playing 28 minutes most nights. So, the deeper leagues, the old Diamond, Onyx, Platinum, Double, Titaniums, that's interesting. And let me guarantee you, I don't know this for sure, he's not on ESPN, is he? Tyrese Martin, ESPN players, he's not there. You can't add him? Sure. All right. But that's a game that's just very, very indicative of the nonsense that goes on pre-Thanksgiving. Finney Smith did nothing, 9 points with 3 threes. Trendon Watford was good with the scoring in 22 minutes. And with Clowney out and Claxton banged up, I don't mind a deeper add of Watford. Schroeder had 29 points. He's going to put up some good numbers here. And Ben Simmons, look at this, 27 minutes, 14, 9, and 8. I think at the moment, Simmons has some 12-team appeal. He's not going to be for everybody, but while these guys are banged up, there'll be a little bit extra for him to do. And then the guy that we thought might do more, and he was pretty good yesterday, he wasn't that good here, Zaire Williams. 10 and 4 with 2 steals, but again, I'm throwing a lot of this game out because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. We can go on now, and we will go on and talk about the Phoenix side of things, which it was a back-to-back, and interestingly enough, they played their guys. They played their Beal and they played their Durant, and actually both of them, and we'll talk about that in a sec, but both of them actually ended up getting hurt in the game. Not from necessarily the injuries that they were dealing with before, but from some different ones. So I'm going to bring that up in a sec. So we look at that Phoenix side of the equation. Oh, that's the wrong lineup. I've got to fix that up. There we go. That's the Phoenix lineup. So it's the same lineup they ran with last time, but then they lose 127-117 to the Nets. I should have even mentioned that when talking about the Nets, because they're just this weird, bizarre team at the moment, the Nets. Durant, 30 minutes, 8 rebounds, 3 threes, 3 blocks. He hurt his ankle late, but he was able to stay in the game. Beal was not. And he was playing well. 17 points, 3 rebounds. Not much else, but he was starting to look all right. Then he sprained his ankle, and we didn't get any update from Budenholzer on it. So, if Beal is out, it's more to do for Grayson Allen, who had 9 points here. That's not very good. It's more to do for Royce O'Neal. 8 points, 2 threes, 4 steals, and you could stream those guys in, but we just literally have no idea about where the status is of Beal at the moment. Nurkic was able to put together a worse game than yesterday. 6 and 7 in 17 minutes for him. Not much going on there, and the unpredictability of Nurk continues. And we got 12 assists out of Tyus Jones, which we love. Devin Booker, the only guy really providing any level of consistency. He had 31, 3 and 4 in 39 minutes. And we just wait to see if there's any repercussions on Durant and what happens there with Beal. Really poor loss, but we also expect more Ryan Dunn, but that's probably not going to be an impact in any sort of standard formats. All right, and let's go on to the final game of the day. The Oklahoma City Thunder come out on top of the Golden State Warriors 105-101. The Thunder, no Aaron Wiggins in the starting lineup for this one. They replaced him with Isaiah Joe. And then, unfortunately, as I realized that score up the top is... Oh, no, that's correct. I thought I was wrong. No, they replaced him with Isaiah Joe. And then Jalen Williams got hurt. Let's start with the Bronco and what we know so far, which isn't a huge amount. He got a sort of hit across the eye, only played 16 minutes, had 13, 6, and 7 with 2 steals and a block, which is an amazing line outside of the bad free throws. We hope that everything's all right. If he does have to miss out on time, well, it's just going to be a bunch of weirdness again. And this time it was Cason Wallace who stepped up. 9 and 5, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. But Williams could be just totally fine. And we just don't know. And I'm just going to keep checking in to see if we get any information to say what's going on with his eye. But at this point, we just don't know. So you could take a look at Wallace, but we've seen the pattern a million times with this team this season that it's just unpredictable game by game. Shea was awesome, 35, 9, and 5 with 2 blocks, and Isaiah Hartenstein had 14 and 14 with 2 blocks. Good games from both of those players. Also, a weird game from Shea, 6 of 10 from the line. He's had some weird free throw performances this season. Joe did his thing, 31 minutes, 17 points with 4 threes, and we finally got Lou Dort to score. 2 points for Dorter with 2 blocks. Now, he's been solid at times this season, but in the end, he is Lou Dort. So if you don't want to hold him, it 100% makes sense. While Wiggins, who'd been playing a lot, played 14 minutes. His numbers are all over the place. AJ Mitchell had been playing well. He played 17. It's going to be this ups and downs and players changing all the time. Wallace is interesting with Jalen Williams out, but it could also be Dylan Jones that plays. Like, it could be a million different guys they throw in there. Jones played 13 minutes here. The Warriors were without Steph, but John Kuminga did return to the game, or return to the action, and return to the starting lineup. So the Warriors did their thing, and they made a million changes again. Podziemski started with Steph out, and Steph is just resting. I'm sure he won't get fined. I'm sure the NBA's doctors won't look into that and tell the Warriors that he was fine to play. That's where that whole thing becomes a problem, doesn't it? You find the Hawks for Trae Young for that thing, but they won't do anything about this one. They won't do anything. So John Kuminga started with Trace Jackson-Davis going to the bench. I think part of that is maybe it's because it's the Thunder, but the Thunder were starting Hartenstein. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Draymond, 10, 13, and 7 with 2 blocks is great, and it was a very good game from Buddy Hield. Yes, that is because Steph is out, I think. He only still took 8 shots, Budrick. He had 5 threes and 17 points, and this would not make me rush to add. Podziemski's fine in a game where Steph misses, I guess, 12, 8, and 5, but Steph will be back next game, and it was a better game from Kuminga. He took 21 shots, so they're still not going in. 19 points with 4 rebounds, but like I said, all of this doesn't really mean anything because Curry didn't play. And Curry comes back and everything changes again. Wiggins was fine, and he's the other guy that I would roster. It would be Wiggins, it would be Steph, it would be Draymond, and then Lindy Waters, who'd been playing well, didn't shoot well at all, 14%, but he did have a steal, he did have a block, he did have a 3. He's a very solid, deeper league player, Lindy Waters. Jackson Davis barely played, 4 minutes. He might start the next game and play 19, or he might be out of the rotation for the foreseeable future. I just don't know, and again, so much of what happens on Thanksgiving Eve has no real application as we move forward. It's just a weird day. Now, it is a very weird day in the NBA with so many games on. I don't have the time to be able to go and put together the monstrous line of the night graphic for you, unfortunately. So I will just go through and have a look. The games have just finished. I've just got a million things to go and do here. So I'll just tell you who ends up winning the monstrous and all the awards right now, top of my head. Not top of my head, I've got it in front of me. The monstrous line of the night is Jim Harden. Your waiver wire line of the heart, Jim Harden had 43, 4, and 7 with 7 triples, by the way. Your waiver wire line of the night was Marcus Smart, 25 points, 7 threes, 5 assists, and 3 steals. Don't think I'd read a huge amount into that one. Your young gun of the night, let's just have, it's Amen Thompson, of course it is, 19 and 13 with 3 steals and 3 blocks on 80% shooting. Just unbelievable stuff from Amen. And if we go right down to the bottom of my list here and have a look at your dud of the night, well, this guy's rostered in 93% of leagues according to Basketball Monster and our metric, and his name is Isaiah Stewart, and he had 2 rebounds. He went 0 of 6 from the field. So yeah, that's your dud. If I take a look at your top 6 players today, it's Harden, Maxey, Jalen Green, Haliburton, Amen Thompson, and Evan Mobley. I will go and have a look at your top 6 Yahoo Points League players as well, so you guys don't feel any sort of left out there. Maxey, Mobley, Harden, Shea, Jokic, and Jalen Green are your top 6 there. And then we'll have a look at the top 6 ESPN ones. Harden, Maxey, Mobley, Jokic, Brunson, and Haliburton. In terms of injuries in the games, there were lots of them. We probably won't get any updates tomorrow, but Bradley Beal left with an ankle problem. Jalen Williams with the eye issue. Drew Eubanks left with a knee issue. Kevin Durant sprained his ankle. He didn't leave the game, though. There's a lot of stuff that Jimmy Butler with the back problem ended his night early. There's a lot of random stuff there. Kyle Kuzma with the rib. I think the Kuzma one is probably the most significant in terms of giving some value there to Keyshawn and George. Beal probably misses with O'Neal and Allen being the beneficiaries, and then we just have to wait on the Jalen Williams one. And it was very obviously Cason Wallace who was able to pop in there today. And that is an absolute monster show. I apologize if it seemed a little bit haphazard. It felt haphazard to me. There was just so much going on and so many different performances and so many things that you feel like you need to ignore because honestly, in the next game, you might have 30 different players return from injuries or absences or lineup changes that affects everything. Random pop-offs for the Nets, games all over the shop, just weirdness. And usually this settles down after the Thanksgiving break, which is literally tomorrow. In the interim, enjoy yourselves on Thanksgiving. Give thanks. Give thanks to yourself. Understand, again, that things can be tough and things can be hard and we all get negatives. A lot of you will be fearing and dreading what's going to happen on your Thanksgiving and a lot of different things. But again, remember, do a good thing, but know that you've done a good thing. Acknowledge you did a good thing. Be proud of yourself. Be proud of others. Tell people when they do something good. Guys, we are done here. Apologies again if this show was a bit all over the place. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.